Shalom, we are continuing now with Psalm 79, a psalm of Asaph. O God, heathens have entered your domain, defiled your holy temple, and turned Jerusalem into ruins. They have left your servants' corpses as food for the fowl of heaven, and the flesh of your faithful for the wild beasts. Their blood was shed like water around Jerusalem, with none to bury them. We have become the butt of our neighbors, the scorn and derision of those around us. How long, O Lord, will you be angry forever? Will your indignation blaze like fire? Pour out your fury on the nations that do not know you, upon the kingdoms that do not invoke your name, for they have devoured Jacob and desolated his home. O do not hold our former iniquities against us. Let your compassion come swiftly toward us, for we have sunk very low. Help us, O God, our deliverer, for the sake of the glory of your name. Save us and forgive our sin for the sake of your name. Let the nations not say, where is their God? Before our eyes let it be known among the nations that you avenge the spilled blood of your servants. Let the groans of the prisoners reach you. Reprieve those condemned to death, as befits your great strength. Pay back our neighbors sevenfold, for the abuse they have flung at you, O Lord. Then we, your people, the flock you shepherd, shall glorify you forever. For all time we shall tell your praises. One of the most well-known and remarkable and confusing moments of the Passover Seder is the moment when we open the doors of our homes after we have our meal, and we set out a fifth cup, the cup of Elijah, and we recite one of the verses found in this very psalm when we open the door. And that verse is verse 6. Shvo chamatcha el hagoyim asher lo yida'ucha. Pour out your fury on the nations that do not know you, upon the kingdoms that do not invoke your name, for they have devoured Jacob and desolated his home. Certainly it would make sense to include Elijah on some level in our Seder, because Elijah is meant to be the harbinger of the Messianic age. In the Bible, Elijah never died, but was whisked away to heaven on a chariot. So he did not die physically. And as a result, all sorts of legends have arisen about Elijah's ongoing presence from time to time throughout history. How his spirit pops up as a symbol of healing, as a symbol of prophecy. He is invited to every Brit Milah, every circumcision, ritual circumcision, when a chair for Elijah is set aside as the child is circumcised, symbolizing Elijah's presence as a force for healing energy. And so, too, Elijah, because he announces the coming of the Messiah, is invited to our Seders, because on our Seders we celebrate the redemption and the liberation of the Israelite slaves from Egypt. But this idea of opening the door and reciting this very vindictive psalm verse, pour out your fury on the nations that do not know you, that can be problematic. It is generally thought that that particular passage was added in the Seder during medieval times, possibly even during the time of the Crusades, when so many thousands of Jews were murdered by the Crusaders while they were embarking on their holy pilgrimage, quote, holy pilgrimage to Jerusalem to liberate Jerusalem. But also the Crusades were an opportunity for Jew hatred to come out in full-fledged power in the form of violence, wanton violence against Jewish civilians. So this section is a reminder that because we have suffered so during our past, there were times when we wished for the destruction and prayed for the demise of our enemies. After all, we are only human. And if our enemies are destroyed, then we feel safe and our security is guaranteed. Of course, that has never happened, and we continue to be threatened in many ways. And anti-Semitism and acts of anti-Semitism continue to proliferate throughout our country and in other places throughout the world. And so we open the door, and from the safety of our homes, as a reminder of the time of the Crusades and other times of persecution, culminating, of course, in the worst of all, the Holocaust. From the safety of our homes, we open our doors and we ask God to destroy our enemies. We cannot do it on the outside because, of course, that would create more problems than we have now. And naturally, during the Crusades, Jews could not venture out of their homes and call for the destruction of their enemies publicly, because that would have amounted to immediate and swift retribution against them. During the COVID-19 pandemic, from the safety of our homes this past Passover at the end of March, we opened our doors, we asked God to destroy our enemies, and perhaps symbolically, some of us were thinking of the virus, the pandemic, as our greatest enemy, asking God to eradicate and erase this terrible threat in our lives. We did so from the safety of our own homes. As also a reminder that as long as this pandemic is active, and at the current time when I am recording this video now, the virus is increasing in many parts of our country, and the threat is not going away. We remind ourselves that our homes are still the safest places for us to be, and that when we venture out, we need to be extra careful about how we do that. Wearing masks, social distancing, washing our hands frequently, using hand sanitizers, practicing all safety measures that are possible to practice. These are the things that we need to continue to do, especially while the pandemic is so prevalent in our midst. It is often safe to be home, but when we open the door to venture out, remember that it is not necessarily safe out there, and that we can't rely on God to do the work for us of destroying this pandemic, our greatest enemy today. The best thing we can do is mitigate and destroy it ourselves by safe and healthy practices and measures. Thank you.